Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm calling to order this special meeting of the Southborough Select Board. And we just have one item on our agenda tonight, which is to discuss, hopefully, take a vote to appoint new fire chief. So just for the format of our discussion, I thought I'll just kind of summarize again the process that led us here, and then my thoughts are we'll just kind of go down the line and each talk about what our thoughts are on the vote, and then maybe before we actually move to a vote, we kind of see whether there is a consensus person that's emerged out of our discussions. I thought it was helpful at the meeting last Thursday night when Bernie Lynch, the recruiter that we used for the process, gave an overview of how the process works, so that residents can understand. I think there was a good and open process that there were 15 candidates who applied, 7 of whom were interviewed, 5 of whom were sent on to the assessment center, and then 3 candidates emerged from that for our final interviews that we had last Thursday night. And I thought that the process worked well. We had 3 good candidates before us at our interviews last Thursday, and I do think that whoever we pick will be in a good position, and I hope that we can kind of all get together as a board behind that person and support them. So after the review of the resumes and the assessment center and last Thursday's interviews, in my mind, I think the 2 candidates who stood out the most were Chief McDonald and Captain Puccini, and they would each give us, very different things in terms of their experience and their background. But I think my own view is, I think at this point, the best fit for Southborough would be Captain Puccini. And just briefly, I think the things, I'll also just say that after the interviews, I took some time to talk to people who, have a pretty extensive experience in fire service and whose experience I really respect. And they also had some very positive things to say about Captain Puccini. And the things in my mind that have influenced my decision are: 1, I thought Captain Puccini gave a really interesting and compelling answer on Thursday about his unique experience with regional dispatch, about how he's worked in 3 different arrangements there. I think he can be that can help them be an asset to us as we think about what's the right thing to do, and also if we decide to make a transition to help them in the transition. I thought it stood out to me that his application was supported by strong letters of recommendation from, I think, 3 different fire chiefs. His current chief in Ashland, and also the chief in Wayland. I think he has a long runway here. If we were to appoint him as our new fire chief in Southborough, I think the Chief McDonald's experience as a chief right now, he could move and be ready to step into the job right away. But this would be his 3rd position as a chief in a different municipality, and there's something that excites me about. For Captain Puccini, we'd be giving him, it would be his first time as chief, but I just got a sense of excitement about, he's excited about the job, and I think that he can bring a kind of a good level of energy to the department. It's not as big of a factor, but it's also a plus for me, is the fact that he lives right nearby in Ashland and is familiar with our community, so he is available to respond to a complicated emergency response quickly. And just finally, I think during the interviews, he really showed a lot of poise and maturity and seriousness in the responses that he made. So that just go down the line, Kathy.
So I believe that all 3 candidates could do the job. I think that we've proven again that working with Paradigm and Mr. Lynch is a very sound way to try to pick positions that are so important to this town. I thought all three, the assessment center was interesting. As we know, the scores for the assessment center were all very close, so there was no, one person that stood out as far as those very experienced people. That, so we knew that they thought that all three could do the job based on the assessment center. I want to hear what my colleagues have to say before I actually, decide for sure, but right now, Mr. Quintini is my vote, with Mr. McDonald being number two. For a lot of the reasons that Andrew said, hold on, but I do want to repeat it because I think it's important. I have also talked to others that I have great respect for that understand the role and what a fire chief should do much better than I do. And unanimously, they support Andrew Quintini. They are not concerned, you know, he's young, he is a captain, he's not a deputy or a fire chief. But some of them have known him for a long time and they believe he's ready, they think he's smart. He looked very eager to me, so I'm not concerned about his lack of chief or deputy chief experience based on what others who know this business better than I do have said. So I'm okay with that. Foxborough. As some of you know that have been involved in the discussion of a rec or not, I really like the Foxborough rec. That's the first one we went to. And was very impressed with it. I really like the idea of someone coming in that knows how a rec works and can help us through this process. And if it turns out we believe that going to a rec is the better decision for Southborough, he can help explain why to the police and fire and dispatchers, so they understand that he's actually lived it and understands, you know, pros and cons. So I am very much supportive of someone taking this job that does understand the rec, has been involved in different types of rec, and he can help us through that process. So that's very important to me too. I do like the idea that he lives close by, that's helpful. I also thought he really did his homework. I was really impressed with what he said in his interview as far as looking at old board meetings and pitching borrows. So I thought that part was good too. So I think he checks all the boxes. I think the other two too, but I think that Andrew checks them better than the other two for now, until I hear from the other two.
I'm aligned with Andrew and Kathy on this. Again, all credible candidates. I think that for me, at least, Chief McDonald and Captain Patini were the two that were the finalists of the three for me. I'm a big fan of experience, and both Captain Patini and Chief McDonald have experience in different types. I, again, like the energy and the opportunity. Kathy said a long runway potential would be great. And it seems to me that he was ready for the challenge, and I think that he brings a lot of experience in terms of the larger events for Foxborough that he's involved with there. That makes a strong candidate. So again, I am in favor of Captain Patini.
My thoughts were that all three candidates were good. And I had felt inclined toward one particular candidate, but then the more that I learned, I would support Captain Contini to be the new chief because I felt that his focus on the job was really good. And I felt that he'd done a lot of things that he didn't bring up, but came up in conversation that would be helpful. And I think he would be diplomatic, working with the family that is the fire department. And I also think that he is familiar with things like AI that we're going to have to be dealing with, which is some form of that will impact the way the fire department functions. So I think all three candidates were very good, and I support Captain Putin as well.
Well, the good news is we had an embarrassment of riches. We had three applicants who I think any of which could do the job. I agree that it sort of comes down to Mr. Harrington. Mr. Harrington clearly has wealth of experience to walk into the firehouse tomorrow.
McDonald.
McDonald, excuse me. walk into the firehouse tomorrow and do the job. Probably wouldn't have to interact with us much at all. Mr. Patini, is less seasoned as the chief, he's not seasoned as a chief. His experience in a rec member is a big plus in my mind, whether we decide to go or not. He can at least help us understand the pluses and the minuses from somebody who literally boots on the ground. One thing I think we shouldn't get too worked up about is how long we expect this person to work for us. Both of the deputy, both of the Mr. Harrington and Mr. Patini, this would be their first chief job. We're a small town. If they're as good as we hope they are, this might not be their last chief assignment. But I'm leaning as well towards Mr.
Okay. So it sounds like, there's a consensus. The one other thing that I thought about, surprised it didn't come up in our comments, was experience in budgeting. So there, Captain Routini has excellent experience with, writing administrative grants that made me feel good. And I think you'd be coming in at a time where the budget for fiscal year 2025 is already passed set. So, you know, he would have until December of 2024 to get his feet wet and then learning about Southborough before then getting involved in the process and putting together the budget for Southborough. And I think that that's a good transition period. Is there anything else we want to discuss here or?
Well, let me just add on to the budget, I'm not
Sure.
concerned about the budget either, and no offense to chiefs out here. The budget really is all salaries for the most part, I mean, it really is mostly contractual, so it's not a lot of mystery to it. Yes, you gotta figure out what your overtime budget is, it's probably where you spend most of the time, the rest of it is, mostly fixed costs, et cetera, so we'll pick that piece of it up. The fact that he's really good at grant writing, I think it's great, he's got a lot of experience here, so that will help too. So I'm not worried about him, having to pick up the budget. We've got Chief Newell right there that, and Sean that will help him there.
Okay, are we ready to take a vote?
I think so.
And so, Mark, in terms of the format of the motion, look at the motion to appoint this. General law, subject to successful contract. Okay, well, also the additional background checks, so. Yeah, there will be additional background check, we'll do a full background check. Okay, so I move that the board appoint Andrew Routini as our next fire chief, subject to successful completion of contract negotiations and the remaining. Okay, all those in favor? All those against? All right. Did we get it right? Thank you. Okay, so while we're here, the next step would be, Marguerite and Al, the format we've used for, contract negotiations. Heads that have contracts this week, appoint two people to, negotiate the contract, bring it back to the board, discuss it in executive session, and then once we come to an agreement, finalize it. So I'd be happy to do this. I actually have now done every single one. So I did Fire Chief Achilles' second contract. Bill Cundiff's first contract. Chief Newell's contract. And also, Sharon Galligan's last
Point,
contract.
Andrew.
For your experience.
Yeah, my experience.
You've done too many times.
I know, well, that's what I hope is that, well, we do have to do this regularly, but not in the same like new contracts.
No, I would hope that you would do it again.
I nominate Kathy and Andrew.
We had to do it. I did Brian, that's my experience.
Okay, so I don't know if we need a formal motion for that. Or, okay, I move that Kathy and I, be the representatives of the board to work with, still Captain Routini on the terms of this contract to be Chief Routini.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. And then I'll move the date. Oh, yes, this is the part which is gonna take a long time, is our next meeting date. So,
23 is out.
The 22nd and 23rd, we put the Passover.
I thought the 22nd is the major Passover event. Passover is actually 10 days or something, right? So,
Yeah, I checked with my daughter, who used to be in the school instructor, she said 22.
Are schools closed both days?
I don't know.
So,
our schools are.
okay, so Al, are you saying that you don't want to do it the 23rd and you don't want to zoom in either?
I would prefer not to.
so then the issue becomes then on the 24th.
I have a conflict.
I can't do 24th. So we can't do
Okay,
24th.
the 25th is candidates. Yeah, so I just, if it's at all possible, I really prefer not to push it into the following week, because then we're gonna have two meetings back to back, and a 3-week, meetings.
We can't do the 16th.
I know, but you're gonna lose somebody somewhere, so the question is.
I think my whole schedule around the 23rd, so
Okay,
I need the 23rd, and there's not much else I can do around it.
so, I mean, it seems like the date which would work the best for the most people is still the 23rd. I know, Al, that you have a conflict there, but it
Yeah,
seems that.
I may or may not, I'll
Okay.
do my best.
All
The
right.
24
We
is
can also, if it helps, move the start date of the meeting back up. Yeah, yeah.
In total respect what that night is, but we just had this date set for so long, I just plan on the stuff around it, I don't have another date.
Unless you're willing, yeah, the other possibility is to go to the 30th, which is my wife's birthday.
Yeah.
It's probably.
Probably more,
Then we're
We
right.
have another meeting right away next week.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so.
so I think the 23rd.
Okay. And then,
It is what it is.
if it's helpful to have it earlier or later than 6:30.
I'll check with the boss.
Okay, all right. Anything else before we adjourn? Okay. All right, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, well,